Hello, and welcome to Bean Steamers, the latest installment of Bean Steamers. We'd like to welcome, of course, Harold the baby Bigfoot and Sammy the stuffed hippopotamus with the golden Mickey Mouse ears. You don't see many of those. And today I've got on a special t-shirt. It's my superpuppies.com t-shirt. Put a ray of sunshine into your sad, sad life, superpuppies.com. And that's an internet cartoon that I did a number of years ago. Had a pretty good following. It was during G.W. Bush's administration, and I poked a little fun at him. And I was very popular at the FBI. Now, what can I say? I had a lot of .gov email addresses that subscribed, but that was another time. But I still have some of the shirts left. Well, today we're going to talk about restaurants. And I'll give you a hint, eating in a restaurant ain't what it used to be. Sometime, a long, long time ago, in a time of greater simplicity, specifically after World War II, but before the Beatles played Ed Sullivan's show, going out to dinner at a restaurant was an event that was loved by the whole family. It didn't matter if it was the best restaurant in town or a local burger joint. You looked forward to it all week if it was planned, or you were giddy with glee when it was a surprise. Then something changed. It wasn't just one thing that caused the change, but a conglomerate of minor things that, when put together, created the perfect storm. There was a shift to what was considered the norm in our society, the quest for a bigger house or a newest gadget. Families became reliant on two incomes, which meant less time for anything that didn't involve work, which in the long run meant that restaurants became America's kitchen. It was easier, after a hard day's work, to go out and eat at a restaurant than to go to the grocery store, buy the food, prepare it, inhale it down in 10 minutes, and then be faced with a mess to clean up from all the cooking. Going out to dinner was a better use of time, and if you put a premium price on time, it was a better use of money as well. And that's when the restaurant business changed. That's when everything went south. Well, going out to dinner in the 21st century is a whole new thing. There are many determining factors that make up your dining experience, and not all of them are good. First of all, you go to a dining establishment and there are 3 or 4 tables with guests at them. Good, you mutter to yourself, I'll get prompt service. Well, sadly, that's not the case. For some reason, if the restaurant is not busy, that almost guarantees that your service is going to be slow. Perhaps all the servers are back out on an extended break or the cooks are in a poker game. Who knows? But for whatever reason, you better not be in a hurry. Usually the service is much better when an establishment is a little busy. Of course, what you don't want for the place is to really be hopping. That means that your service will be non-existent and your food, when delivered, will be cold, even if it's the correct order. But more than the restaurant itself, the thing that really upsets me is the people in the restaurant. It starts with the host or the hostess. What is the politically correct term here? Hosti? When the hosti seats you at a table. Everyone knows that restaurants maximize the tables in their dining room for the area, so most of the time we're pretty crammed in. You go sit down in an uncomfortable chair, which is designed in the way that you can eat quick, leave, and they can turn the table over. Now, who wants to sit and talk for hours in a chair that's wrenching your back to the point of surgery? And the person at the table next to you has got his chair 3 feet away from the table and is sitting on the edge of the chair and only using the last 3 inches of the seat. You've seen this before. This has left your chair touching the back of the edge of the table, and you have literally no room whatsoever. Now, asking them to please scoot their chair in usually doesn't do any good. They somehow feel that they have to sit like this in order to enjoy their dining experience. And if they do scoot it in, you'd better be prepared not to leave the table for any reason at all. Once you relinquish your space and they move the chair right back to where it was, and when you return, you have to start the process of reclaiming what the restaurant said was rightfully yours for a short period of time, specifically the room that you have. So once you're there, once again dealing with this inconsiderate slob who really sees nothing wrong with making you sit so close to the table that your upper intestine is pressed against the edge of the table for spite, and then you finally feel that you can maybe get a little bit of room somehow. You need that room. However, but the absolute worst situation that you can encounter in a restaurant is dining in the vicinity of what has become known as the trough feeders. These people have such bad table manners. It drives me crazy. And the eating habits that they should have a brand on their forehead that would automatically keep them from dining in public. Can you see the waiter going, "Excuse me, sir, could you lift the bangs off your forehead, please?" "Oh, I see you have the mark of a trough eater. I'm afraid that you're not permitted in here. I encourage you to go to an etiquette school to be properly trained in how to eat in public. And then, after you present a signed and notarized certificate of graduation to the authorities in power, they will see that you have the mark of the trough removed from your forehead. Then you will be welcomed. However, it will be on a probationary basis. The really sad part about these people is that you can't take your eyes off them. Even though you're losing your appetite with every second, what you would really like to do is to properly wipe your mouth very daintily, leaving the napkin on the correct side of your dish, rise from the table, pushing the slob in back of you that is sitting on the last 3 inches of his chair back into their space. Go over to the table with the trough eater and say in a voice that good manners dictate will not disturb the other fine people dining around them. You could say, "Excuse me, sir. Believe me when I tell you that you will never have a pretty girlfriend, a handsome boyfriend, whichever is appropriate. You will never have a good job. You will never be financially secure, and not one good thing will ever happen to you in what is left of your miserable life. Do you want to know why? Because you have atrocious table manners. That's why." Wouldn't you just love to say that? In your dreams, you triumphantly return to your table, grabbing the back of the seat of the slob at the table next to you, who's sitting on the edge of his chair 3 feet away from his table, and jerk it quickly upward, sending him tumbling to the floor. You then return to your table, claiming the only proper amount of space that you have been given, and gingerly place your napkin on your lap, returning to your dinner. Of course, this course of action is somewhat ill-advised. You may end up with a bullet in your gut from the trough eater, or it could result in being stabbed in the back with a salad fork by the slob at the table next to you that has now risen from the floor wearing his dinner. Sadly, you probably just have to put up with all of this. And if all of this ain't bad enough, the real misery goes to a new height when the server brings you the check. Was a time, muchachos euros agoos, that's Spanish in case you didn't know, when the servers who were then called waiters, and I know I'm going to get struck by lightning for using this term, but it could have been a waitress. Along the same vein, though, did you ever notice that there are no more actresses? Everyone, no matter what gender they are, is an actor. Anyway, when they brought you your check, you just looked at the bottom line and started peeling off the cash. Mind you, this was before everybody had credit or debit cards. Cash was king. You assumed that the bill was correct and you simply paid it. Well, today it's a little different. Well, it's a lot different. First of all, you'd better check if what's on the check is even what you had for dinner. You could be paying for the slob next to you sitting on the edge of his chair that you've been battling all night. Or maybe the computer added the food incorrectly. A $7 drink, $25 dinner, $4 cup of coffee, and the total adds up to $44. Hey, it happens. However, the worst offense scenario goes like this. And I might add that this actually happened to me. I invited a boatload of people out to dinner one beautiful spring evening, 8 to be precise. I called this group of people a boatload because there were lifeboats on the Titanic with less people aboard. I made it quite clear to my guests that they could get whatever they wanted. I was picking up the check. Might also add that this is one of these chain type restaurants where the entrees are $12 to $15, something like that. Some of the people had dessert, some didn't. Some had a more expensive item on the menu, some didn't. You know the way it goes. The food was good, the company was good, the service was excellent. With a party this big, every time the server walks by the table, somebody needs something. They really did a really good job. So when I got the check, it was for $177 and change. Not wanting to look like a cheapskate, I didn't want to look at it to make sure everything added up, that I'd been billed for the proper food. I just looked at the bottom line, $177 and change. I whipped out a credit card and gave it in that nice little leather black folder back to the server for payment. Now, here's the way I figure a tip if the service is excellent, like it was in this case. I take the total and I round it up to the nearest $10, making the bill now $180. 10% is $18. 20% is $36. Then I round that up to the nearest $10. Now the tip is $40. I thought about it for a second, reflecting on the quality of the service, and added another $5 to that. Add that to the check of $177 and change, and you get $222 and change. I wrote $45 on the tip line with a $222 and change total. I left it on the table next to me to be promptly retrieved by the waiter, here I am again, the server, who brought it back with a curt thank you and walked away. Now, I don't expect them to be slobbering all over me for leaving a 20% plus tip, and I don't expect them to start shining my shoes or to start crying, but I do expect at the very least a smile. Well, I got nothing. Zero. Nothing. When I got home, I found out why this server had been so short with me at the time of payment. I looked at the check, and there at the bottom, in small fine print with fading ink, it proclaimed, an 18% gratuity is automatically added to parties of more than 6 people. What this kid had done was add 18% onto my check and then let me tip another $45 on top of that. And he didn't say one word to me about it. Couldn't you just maybe ask him to say, "Sir, I want you to be aware of the fact that an 18% gratuity has been added to your check. Anything you wish to leave beyond that will be gladly accepted." This little slime didn't say one word. And who says that the youth of today aren't inventive? This kid is well on his way to being a CEO at a major corporation, more than likely a pharmaceutical company. Needless to say, I learned my lesson. All in all, we can safely say that dining out ain't what it used to be. You may be better off learning to cook and making your family yummy dinners at home. However, before you do that, read or review my take on the grocery store. It'll open your eyes. Well, that's going to conclude it for this week. Next week, we're going to talk about large discount stores, these chain stores all over the country that sell goods for less, where you can save a lot of money. And we're going to spend some time talking about them. Until then, I ask you, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Hit the little bell for notifications and everything so you can be the first one on your block to have the new installment of Bean Steamers. You'll be a much happier person for it. It'll brighten your day. And just like superpuppies.com, it'll put a little ray of sunshine into your sad, sad life. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week. And as a reminder, videos are posted every Friday around midnight. And wait a minute, would midnight be the start of the day or the end of the day? I think it would be the start of the day. Shortly after midnight, where Thursday changes into Friday, is when the new videos will be posted. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.